Daily Dose of Doc. Hey man, how y'all doing? It's Doc Beanz here with some weed news that you can use, hopefully. And actually, today's story is kind of important. I'm not very happy. This is like less than the first week of a new year, and we already have trouble. According to a recent report by the Trump administration, the police commission slams marijuana legalization and drug decriminalization. One of the last things that he's doing, I guess, in office, I guess he planned on being here for a second term because I don't know that this is going to go anywhere with the Biden administration. Everyone's pretty hopeful that the Biden administration is going to be a lot more proactive when it comes to weed reform. So let's go ahead and see what this police commission has to say. A police commission established by President Donald Trump recently released a report on law enforcement issues that's critical of local efforts to legalize marijuana or otherwise decriminalize drugs. The 300-page report from the Presidential Commission on Law Enforcement covers a lot of ground, but it focuses on cannabis and drug policy in a number of sections. For example, it discusses the need to address issues such as substance misuse and homelessness, but says that they must be balanced with, quote, enforcing the law and maintaining public safety. The report notes that localities across the country have decriminalized or reduced sanctions for drug use, such as in the case of marijuana, or quality of life crimes, actions that are often a result of homelessness, such as public urination. The panel argued that drug policy reforms, quote, merely raise the bar for law enforcement arrests, end quote, but do not account for the reality that law enforcement officers must still address the complaints about these individuals from community members, respond to the non-criminal results of untreated substance use problems like overdoses, or interact with large homeless populations. The Commission recommends that the Department of Justice should examine how local laws and policies that decriminalize or reduce sanctions for drug use or activities related to homelessness impact law enforcement and public safety. So, drug use and homelessness. The Commission, which was established by Trump through a 2019 executive order, argued that enacting decriminalization policies counterintuitively, quote, often results in an increase in the number of people in need who intersect with law enforcement, while the mechanisms to sanction these behaviors and shepherd people into court-mandated treatment programs are removed. Thank you for your shepherding instincts, wanting to herd the homeless drug abusers to the court-mandated drug treatment facility programs. It's worked so far, right? Let's go on to see what this 300-page report has to say. Doc Beanz, Weed World News, thank you for joining me. This is a Daily Dose of Doc. Taking a look at some of the most important stories in cannabis on a day-to-day basis. Today we're talking about a report that the Trump administration got that slammed legalization and decriminalization. It goes on to say, this may have a greater cost to the community, including escalation and long-term drug use, the report says, concluding that Justice Department and state and local governments should weigh the, quote, impact and side effects that the laws and policies of local and jurisdictions have on the safety of their community and effectiveness of their criminal justice system because they don't have bigger fish to fry than some homeless potheads. The document also quotes the Vermont U.S. Attorney. Criminalization, quote, takes a tool away from law enforcement, signals that the behavior is okay and will not have consequences, and logically will lead to more of the undesirable behavior. What's undesirable about something? I guess you're talking about and having to interact with the homeless. Maybe the reasons why certain cities are talking about taking some of the funds that police get to militarize themselves and escalate situations and putting it into the workers who know how to deal with chronic problems like homelessness and drug misuse. To the report, shall we? The panel's 18 members primarily have backgrounds in law enforcement. I'm shocked. And there's the stink bug. It's back. I've got a stink bug that's here. It's my next guest here on Doc Beanz Weed World, a daily dose of Doc. I'll see if I can't get the stink bug to come on over and share some insights as to what it's like to live in an undisclosed secret mountain lair, as Doc does. That's me. I hate people that talk in the third person. 18-member panel, all cops. Big shock. One member is the chief of operations for the Drug Enforcement Administration, for example, and another is a Federal Bureau of Investigation deputy director. The Attorney General of Florida is also a member, as are several local sheriffs. My, what a well-rounded panel drug policy look took. The Commission's report also pushes back against reformers' arguments that punitive anti-drug laws are a main contributor to mass incarceration. Nonviolent drug offenders represent a small fraction of the overall federal prison population. That said, it does acknowledge that law enforcement alone, quote, cannot be expected to remedy the scourge of drug addiction. I'm addicted to pot. More reefer. More reefer. These cops are pretty much out of that age. Law enforcement is part of a government architecture of social welfare and public safety systems that collaboratively function to keep communities safe, the report states. Nevertheless, in many communities, law enforcement still bears the primary responsibility of managing the social ills that motivate crime, be it mental illness, drug addiction, or homelessness. I like how they lump all three of those together because they do go hand in hand. The crazy drug addicted homeless, they are quite the problem. I mean, I'm not dissing the cop. Cops in the family. There's going to be a cop at one. That route. I'm glad. Free rather than just. The commission testimony in preparation for putting the report and cannabis policy was raised at several. In one of the more exchanges, California sheriff testified, quote, for removing as a narcotic public safety because it could help facilitate the creation of a cannabis impairment test. Interesting way to look at it. That said, he claimed high THC products cause and expressed frustration over the broader reform movement, stating that California's push to reduce the prison population is, quote, being done at the expense of our residents, families, and of course the children, kids, as he put it. The federal prosecutor from California was asked about how he navigates the federal-state cannabis policy conflict and told the panel that his office focuses, quote, on what we consider to be the classic federal marijuana cases, and that largely is interstate trafficking of marijuana. Fair enough. Testimony from McGregor Scott, the U.S. Attorney for the Eastern District of California, informed a section of the final report concerning prosecutorial discretion. Informed a section of the final report? Filled it in. I guess he wrote that part of the report. And he said, quote, a threat to the rule of law and the ability of law enforcement to uphold it has recently come identified progressive or social reform prosecutors who purport to share the distrust and cynicism for law enforcement that some in their communities have, the report states. Gosh, you think? Wonder why? It's a mystery. Quote, despite their election to a position to enforce the law, these prosecutors view the very laws they enforce as unjust and illegitimate, and therefore seek to undermine that system by unilaterally deciding not to enforce certain laws, it says. It's not like they don't have anything better to do, right? Going after a bunch of weed heads. That's one of the reasons why the tide is turning, police officers. You need to let weed go. Weed is a sacrament. It was here long before you were, long before any office that you came up with. It is not deleterious to this country whatsoever. It's used by cops, doctors, lawyers, writers, Indian chiefs, choir directors, and the list goes on and on and on. It's really none of your business what other people do, quite frankly, unless they break the law in front of you. Weed has always been a victimless crime, and it always will be. Most potheads are quite sedate and comfortable in their decision to break this one and only unjust law. So it sounds like the cops want to take on the judiciary and the DA's offices because they don't want to enforce certain laws. Well, how about overload? Like I said, they probably have bigger fish to fry. This report goes on to say, it's really tiresome. Unlike standard prosecutorial discretion, in which a prosecutor assesses whether to pursue charges after a case-by-case examination of the individual circumstances, non-enforcement policies remove that discretion entirely by prescribing that certain laws will be categorically unenforced. In other words, police officers, if you have to be forced to be told, quit busting people for weed, we're not going to prosecute it. We got too much blood on the walls from all these other things going on. We've got bigger fish to fry. And weed brings in a lot of money. What's your problem with money? People chilling and relaxing. I guess it's the homeless urinators that are getting on your nerves. And Obama, I didn't finish this last quote. Unlike standard prosecutorial discretion, non-enforcement policies Categorically unenforced. I did finish it. Thank goodness, because I don't want to have to read that stuff again. Boy, these cops, they write so well. They're so in touch with the common person. An Obama era Justice Department memo did provide prosecutors with guidance on the type of discretion they should use when it comes to pursuing cannabis cases amid the state level legalization movement, but that was rescinded under Trump's first Attorney General, Jeff Sessions. Uh-oh, flashing news. We better get a move on. The Trump administration's approach to marijuana has been difficult to define. On the one hand, the president has appointed numerous officials with hostile attitudes towards cannabis reform, and on the other hand, there's been no federal crackdown on legal marijuana states. In a sense, the commission reflects that dichotomy. While critical of cannabis legalization and broader drug decriminalization, members stopped short of suggesting that the federal government should ramp up prosecutions in the growing state legal market. So it was a waste of time. What remains to be seen is how cannabis will be handled under President-elect Joe Biden's Justice Department, as I was saying earlier. He's in favor of medical marijuana legalization, monastery scheduling, decriminalization, expungements for low-level convictions, and allowing states to enact their own policies without fear of federal intervention. However, he's yet to name an attorney general who could fill the guidance gap for federal prosecutors. And his ongoing opposition to adult use legalization is keeping advocates on their toes, including me. Come on back for another Daily Dose of Doc. I'm not sure when that'll be. What is today? I don't even know. What is today? At what time? Oh my gosh, is it evening? That's why it's dark outside. Y'all take care of each other. Peace. Daily Dose of Doc. It's been fun having you here talking about it. Feel free to leave comments. What do you think about this police report? 300-page memorandum. It's more like a manifesto, it sounds like. I mean, it wasn't all about weed, but enough of it was about weed to kind of let you know exactly where the heads of cops are. They don't like prosecutors doing their job. They want to be able to go out and crack heads when it comes to weed people because it gives them an extra tool to be able to bust somebody, quite frankly. Excuse me. I swear it's allergies. And this is no diss on the cops that are actually out there on the streets, busting it every single day and actually having to put their lives on the line. I am not being critical of them. These are the bigwigs. The head of the DEA and the Justice Department and all this other stuff. These are the big guys that sit around in their suits and tell everybody else how to mandate their morals. So they're critical of reform, they cracking down on their job. Maybe they could actually, do something beneficial. Really on cartel kind of people, bringing weed strictly in the market where it started and where it belongs. Peace out, everybody. Happy New Year one last time. I guess we can say that since it's not quite a week since. Peace. Take care of each other. Love it. Got 'em.